and we're live with the latest session in Swarm's AI Career Triathlon. Today is jam packed full of various sessions dedicated dedicated to helping you manage your career and see what's coming into the fold with all the different innovations around AI, and the looming changes in the job market. I mean, we have to have these discussions to get ahead of that. So, my name is Joaquin Melara, and I'm the founder of the Swarm community. Today we have Carmela Pereira. Uh, it's a really, really interesting name. Pereira stands for pear trees, right?
Yep, in Portuguese, but I am not Portuguese, so
We'll get into some of that. Carmela, I'd love for you to maybe give a little bit of a self introduction as to who you are and what you do. And whenever you're ready, you can share your screen and I'll put it up.
yeah, I would love to just jump right into my presentation because I have a slide about who I am and what I do, and I want to be I want to have my attention focused. So I'm going to take your suggestion and move my screens around.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to share this screen. Nope, it's this one.
I'm looking forward to you presenting, you know, with machines being fast and efficient, where do we as humans differentiate ourselves and get a leg up? And where should we rest our it seems like your desktop is not sharing as
Yeah, same. Let's
if that
see.
if that doesn't work, you could just use the main screen and I can verbally let you know when the screen is visible and that things are working as expected.
I knew this was going to happen. I feel like this kind of thing always happens. Let's try it one more time.
Okay, now
There we go. Okay. All right. Say that last sentence one more time because I was distracted by the technology hiccup.
no, no, you're good. I'll step into the backstage, and if you need anything, I'll come back. If there are any questions, if anybody's watching live and has any burning questions, ask them, and we'll address them once the presentation's over in order of recency. So, with that, Carmela, the floor is yours.
I will see you in a bit, Joaquin. Thank you. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Carmela, and I am really excited to talk about those advantages that humans have that AI cannot automate. And I title this Discernment as a Competitive Edge, but there's actually other related skills that we have. However, the title is getting very lengthy, so Joaquin and I decided to keep it simple. I am Carmela, like I mentioned. I am a strategic integrator, AI educator, and consultant. I bridge the gap between human intuition and emerging technology. I am based in New York City, so I attend a ton of in real life events here, but I'm also part of a lot of virtual communities. And that is really because I was terrified of AI about like 14 months ago. I'd been laid off and I was convinced that AI was going to replace me and that it was going to just, we've all seen the sci-fi movies and shows around like AI becoming sentient and ruining everything. And my way through that was to get involved in communities because I find a lot of anxiety, antidotes to anxiety in community. And the beauty of that is that I found so many people who feel the same way about AI. There are people who were afraid of it, but then they're doing really wonderful things with it. And through my discomfort and my anxiety, I actually learned that I needed connection with humans. And so this is going to factor into a lot of what I share, but if I'm going to pay New York City rent, I'm going to attend a lot of New York City events. I'm also a She Leads AI certified AI educator. I frequently facilitate the social Saturdays through She Leads AI, and those are free for the purpose of increasing female voices in the AI space. I'm also a member of the She Leads AI governance community of practice, meaning that I get to work with a bunch of wonderful, brilliant individuals on how to regulate this really quickly mushrooming technology. In May, I will be taking over the ethical AI section of the AI Salon. AI Salon is co-ed. They are kind of partners with She Leads AI. The two of them have just helped me learn so much about how humans can co-create with AI to shape the future of our imagination instead of being fearful. My actual career before all my AI exploration was forged in high pressure, unpredictable environments. So marketing teams in global corporations. I did probably about 10 years of hospitality service all over New York City. So that was lots of bartending, lots of being with the masses. And I really learned a lot about how to interact with people effectively. Throughout all of my expertise, I've learned one constant, regardless of the environment, whether it is super corporate or it is a divey bar on the Upper West Side, attuned strategic collaboration is crucial to sustainable success. I've not ever regretted cultivating those skills. So that's enough about me. Why are we here? I attended, one of the communities I attended was a workshop. And as part of that, there was a presentation for the Center for Artistic Activism. And they had this really cool thing called the Future Screenshot Series. And I just realized I did not set my timer. So I will talk all day and night if people let me. Through one of those workshops, the facilitator talked about this idea that AI is not the technology of the future. It is the technology of the past because it's trained on what's already happened. More than that, as we all know, the data is often biased and incomplete. And then on top of that, errors proliferate and compound because of things like hallucinations. And before I go further, I'm not affiliated with any of the organizations that I'm going to tell you about. I'm just big fans. I've learned a lot from their work. And we have a wide range of demographic here. So Joaquin and his overall newsletter targeted to the general public, but also technical professionals and business leaders. So some of this stuff might be brand new to some of you, and some of it might be a refresher. I'm trying to make sure that I have something for everybody because AI really does affect everybody, whether they like it or not. And I am a perpetual learner, and I'm sharing what I find in real time. I like to say that I'm a pollinator, where whether it's connecting people or introducing information, I have no idea what you're going to do with it, but my hope is that I share something that inspires you so you can do something cool. So as part of that, please check out the Center for Artistic Activism. They have a lot of great information and insights on how to shape the future that you might want to see. So through them, I think another workshop, the same workshop, I've been to a couple, but I think both of them talked about the cone of possibilities or the futures cone, and I had never heard of it before. And it was one of those things that broke my brain, because we often talk about the future as singular, but there are multiple futures based on our intentions and our actions and other factors that we couldn't possibly even imagine. And so the idea is there are possible futures, then plausible futures, futures that might happen, and then preferred futures. And it was such an empowering workshop because it really helped me see how I could live in this space of preferred futures through my creativity, but also through my actions. And so there was an exercise around how to kind of, I guess, like vision some headlines or news stories you might want to see. And so mine was AI helps humanity heal. Hooray. Because as I mentioned before, I had a lot of fear about AI. I still have a lot of fear about AI, but I also have a lot of excitement and I see a lot of possibilities for real transformation. So this is kind of a vision board image for me around this is where I'm going to focus my attention and the rest of this presentation. I went last week to an All Tech is Human event. I had heard about them after speaking at an event in March, and someone mentioned that I would really love them, and they were right. I did really love them. This guy is Reed Blackman. He's a PhD, and he talked about, like, he also introduced a concept that broke my brain around cascading failures. So some people might say, like, oh, okay, yes, LLMs are trained on what's already been written or done, but agentic AI could do some really cool stuff. You know, it can self-correct, it can adapt. But he talks about cascading failures. And what makes AI agents so powerful is also what makes them so risky. They are connected to a lot of tools, any one of which can err. And then that error echoes and amplifies throughout the system. So it's a snowballing effect. And this might sound very doom and gloom, but he actually was not doom and gloom about it. He has something called the Ethical Nightmare Challenge on LinkedIn. I don't know if it's on the socials, but he encourages people to think of the worst case scenario so that they can dial back and prevent it. And he's actually quite optimistic about the future, but we're going to have less catastrophe in the future if we are proactive in preventing things. So what are the costs that I'm going to that the skills that I'm presenting, what are the costs of not doing them? And I don't know, maybe it's me, but some people don't seem to care that much about this idea of cognitive atrophy. I do. I have degenerative brain issues in my family. I've seen what happens when people lose the ability to do the things that made them who they were. And I never want that to happen to me if possible. So I'm not going to go too deeply into things, but I pulled some samples of how, you know, we lose abilities when we don't practice something. It's really like building a muscle. And let's see, what was this economist article talked about, like how, we've been priming for this for decades, like using the internet to Google something. But it says that AI supercharges these trade-offs. And so it's like Google on speed. And on top of it, there's a book by Ethan Malik where he talks about, he knows that he didn't write a certain article and the AI will convince him that he did. So it's not even that it's hurting our cognition, it is inadvertently gaslighting us. So cognitive surrender is really scary for me, but I'm going to, I use AI all the time. I use it very intentionally to sharpen my cognition. And so I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm also going to share that neurons can be rescued if we continue learning. The human brain is a brilliant organ, and it is also very lazy, and it really wants to conserve energy. So that's why the whole use it or lose it. If we're not practicing something, the brain's going to be like, guess you don't need it anymore. And I'm going to use this energy for other, more important tasks. Okay, so here's a cost that a lot of people might care about more, which is, I didn't know this till recently, and I didn't fully understand what it meant until I heard it a few times. But a lot of these massive companies that are providing the tech we use at little or no cost are hemorrhaging money. And so here's one about Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta. They spent more than 130 billion in quarterly capital expenditures. We're not going to get into things like environmental factors on this talk. We only have 30 minutes, but then we have OpenAI. They're going to bleed 14 billion for 2026. They're not doing this because they care so much about us. There is a point, and I'm not going to say the name of this book because I don't know if LinkedIn allows for any kind of cursing, but you can see, hopefully see what it's called here. This book has been recommended to me a lot. I haven't read it yet. I want to be clear that I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my list. But the author acknowledges that people who are behind all these endeavors, they're not evil, but they're following the capitalistic creed of maximizing profits by any means necessary. And so what that's going to mean for us is prices are going to spike. I don't know when, but it's kind of almost trademark around increasing dependency on something and then hiking up the price. So that gives me pause. I don't want to become dependent on these massive corporations. I don't want to become dependent on anything. And I looked it up. WALL-E was released almost 18 years ago. And I remember watching it in the theater and kind of laughing in the way that I would like the Jetsons or some kind of sci-fi movie. But now I'm wondering, were they right? Like, are we just being kind of primed to be these helpless, dependent consumers? It doesn't feel so cute anymore. So now I'm getting to the solution, because I really do believe that this is an opportunity for humans to take back their power. And a big part of that is realizing these things are happening. So some of us may have heard of AQ before. Again, I only heard of it last year. IQ, I'd say most people have heard this. It's used to express relative intelligence. I still don't know my IQ, or if I even ever had an IQ test. EQ involves the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions, to use this information to guide one's thinking and action. And then AQ predicts how quickly someone can learn, unlearn, and recalibrate when conditions change. And so there's a Forbes article where it talks about AQ is suddenly what matters most, because we have to be very adaptable. What we know, I just feel like as humans, we can't possibly know as quickly as the tech is advancing. And so it becomes about how to not fall apart when stressed or having to make rapid decisions. So now I'm getting to the meat of this presentation, which are the skills that cultivate your EQ. And these are not textbook, you wouldn't look this up in the dictionary and find these definitions. These are more in terms of how the definitions relate to AI use. So discernment is choosing which AI feedback is valuable versus the noise. And there's a lot of noise. Then there's judgment, which is deciding if our thinking is solid enough to move from AI practice to human application. And then finally, incomplete thinking means to just get messy with the AI and then have actual humans give us feedback. And that part about the human feedback is crucial. And so I'm going to give you 3 examples for technical professionals, business leaders, general public. That way everybody feels seen. So an example of discernment for technical professional would be 15 AI coding assistants in your inbox, and you're able to eliminate 12 immediately without having to prompt an LLM to help you. you know that only 3 offer fundamentally different approaches that are worth your time. And part of that is being very clear about what your problem is, and then being able to be like, nope, this is just kind of shiny bells and whistles. This is not going to, it's pretty, it's not going to help me with what I need. And there's so much of that right now because so many people are creating their own products and there's just not enough time to do like proper market research. For business leaders, you get 23 vendor pitches and you're able to dismiss 20 right away. You realize their solutions are looking for problems, but they're not solving yours. And again, some people, like some companies have great marketing campaigns and such, and can almost convince you that, oh my God, I can't live without what they're, offering me. But it's like, wait, that's not what I need help with. And then finally, for the general public, like I was last year, your feed is split between AI is the best thing ever and AI is the end of humanity. And so the way you can practice discernment is ignoring both extremes and finding two to three voices that actually track how work is changing in your field. So an example of judgment for each. Technical professionals, even though you don't have complete benchmark data, you pick an assistant, trusting your read, your human intuitive read on how it will work for your team. And it's this willingness to fail early, fail often, and keep moving without having all the answers. For business leaders, you have your 3 vendors out of the 23, and you choose the team who seems to really understand your industry because you can tell that they're going to work with you to solve your actual problems versus pushing flashy, cookie cutter quick fixes. You trust the relationship, not the feature list. And then finally, for general public, despite the uncertainty, you choose to engage rather than avoid. I know so many wonderful people who I really want them to learn AI because I know that they could do really like humanitarian things with it, but they want nothing to do with it. They think it is just pure evil. But for those people, I wish that they would learn one AI skill this month that's relevant to their work. And then for any job seekers, even though you don't have proof that upskilling in that skill will save your job, your gut tells you that understanding the tech is more effective than fearing it. What I'm trying to get at is this feeling of adventure and excitement. And I know that can be so challenging when you're like scared. I've definitely been there. When I get in that place of exploration, things have a chance of being more fun and enjoyable. And I'm coming up on my first reminder, so I'm just going to set. Okay, so finally, so an example of incomplete thinking for technical professionals, sharing a buggy prototype that you built with this one coding assistant, purposely sharing it, even though you know there's so many things that are wrong with it. Your team's pushback will expose things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. And it's so much easier and cost effective to nip things in the bud versus when they've scaled into this like massive issue. Catching these bugs early improves the solution. And for me, I'm such like a perfectionist. I'm so afraid to have my work shown before I've like done my due diligence, but we don't really have time to be precious with stuff anymore. We have to just kind of get it out there and risk. There's this level of humility that's required. For business leaders, you do 2-week pilot instead of a 6-month implementation because that pushback, like you're actually looking for pushback. It reveals regulatory concerns you hadn't seen. And I worked for 6 years at a background and identity services company. There was a lot of regulatory concerns, a lot of legal concerns. It's so much easier to solve for these early in the process versus later. And what a lot of people in companies, whether it's accounting or C-suite, they love to hear about cost savings. So this is a good a good reason to do that. And then for the general public, share messy first attempts with a colleague, including the really hilarious, embarrassing prompts that went nowhere. I'm often afraid that people are going to be like, duh, like you could have done it this way. But more often than not, when I have discussions with people, they're like, oh, I didn't think about using it that way. And then it turns more into like a dynamic back and forth versus somebody making fun of me because I don't know how to do something. Because especially in the AI space, there's so many different ways to do something and things are moving so quickly that I've met more people who are genuinely interested and want to help me, and then met people who are like, ugh, idiot, you could have done that so much differently. So here's a refresher because I'm coming up on my second time. Discernment is cutting through the noise to what's worth your attention. So all this crap, and I know that we're bombarded with a lot of crap, but we're all busy people trying to live our lives. So discernment helps with the actual selection. Judgment, making directional calls without perfect information. And I talk about intuition a lot. I think a lot of people might roll their eyes, but Steve Jobs was a huge proponent of intuition. And regardless of how you feel about how he was as a person, he was a brilliant visionary person. So if he's going to value intuition, then I am as well. And then finally, incomplete thinking, sharing messy work with humans to generate better options or outcomes. And I stress humans because there's so much that AI gives us, and then there's so much that it takes away. We actually need the friction of talking with other humans. And I'll get into that in my following slides. But first, I want to give you some actionable tips, and this is a good time to screenshot, or I can also send this after. I'll provide my contact information in the chat, or so for discernment for technical professionals, before learning a new tool, ask what methodology problem does it solve. And I want to tell you that this just seems like common sense, but I can't tell you how many times I've been part of meetings where the strategy is not worked out at all. People they don't have a problem statement. Filter out anything that's just a feature dressed up as innovation. For judgment, use your gut, trust your gut to decide on one tool. And this is a big one for me because I will have analysis paralysis. I want to try everything and then I end up trying nothing. Make a decision. You could always go back and try something else. Features can change and evolve. There was a Seth Godin quote where he talks about treating strategy as a compass and not a map. I really loved that around it's a direction. It's not like set in stone. And then I want to be mindful of time because we're almost at time. Share your code with a colleague before it's clean. Let their questions improve it. And closing thoughts. Most of us don't want to outsource our thinking. It's happening beyond our awareness. The dependency isn't intentional for us anyway. It's invisible. We have to cultivate our cognitive abilities like we do our muscle tone. Our brains can change based on what we practiced or don't practice. How they change is up to us. The three advantages don't just provide a competitive edge. They're actually necessary for human preservation. But I don't want to leave with gloom and doom because I'm actually quite excited about the future. And I have to choose that attitude every day. I know who wrote this quote, but his last name is kind of like a curse. It's a curse word, and I don't know if I'm allowed to share that. But, sorry. The difference between an adventure and an ordeal is attitude. And so to go back to our original slide, we are here. Where do we want to go? And I think this is such a wonderful crossroad for us to decide. How do we want to take our human skills towards our preferred futures? This is my favorite example of that, even though this is not a human, it's a canine. But some humans created a company called Diagnosis, where they use canines' abilities to detect cancer combined with AI to detect it faster. I wish I knew people who worked here or dogs who worked here, but this is such a perfect example of like a future I couldn't imagine. My challenge to you, because we're at time, share incomplete thinking with a person this week. They might understand or challenge you. You can't control their reactions. The friction you feel is the feature, not the bug, because it forces you to stay present and iterate in real time. The discomfort will force you to clarify what you actually think. And we're just at time. I apologize for going over, Joaquin, but if anybody is around and wants more information, it's a one-time thing. I'm not going to add you to a listserv because I don't have one, but I would love to stay in touch, and I would love to share these resources because it's important for me to be, someone has described it as like a raft in this tidal wave of AI information. I'm going to stop share.
Thank you very much, Carmela. So we're going to take a brief intermission, and we're going to have ample Q&A time in the next session. So if you have any burning questions around this topic, please shift them over to the next session, and we'll see you in about 9-10 minutes. So thank you all, and thank you, Carmela, for that lovely presentation.
Thank you so much, Joaquin. I'll see you in the next session.